The 38th annual Winnipeg Fringe Festival is in full swing, transforming the Exchange District and venues across the city into a vibrant celebration of theater in all its forms. From the quirky to the heartfelt, the festival showcases a kaleidoscope of performances from local, national, and international artists. One such show, Hockey Sticks and Beaver Pies, is playing at the Théâtre Molière, which is at 340 Provencher, and offers a uniquely Manitoban experience. Created and performed by singer, author, actor, and music historian Melanie Gall, this production explores the province through offbeat stories, surprising facts, and musical tributes to homegrown icons like Burton Cummings, Terry Jacks, and Deanna Durbin. This promises to be a fun and incredibly excellent show and a total love letter to the province. And joining me here in the Classic 107 studio to talk about her show, Hockey Sticks and Beaver Pies, I am joined by the creator, singer, and actor for the show, Melanie Gall. Hey, Melanie, great to have you here.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so firstly, I was on your website, and the words that came to my mind were multifaceted. You've got a wide variety of interests. Firstly, you're a professionally classically trained singer. You've sung at the Met. Have done your studies at the Mozarteum in Salzburg. Can you talk about your background in singing a bit?
Sure. Well, I grew up in St. Albert in Alberta, and basically, I went to the University of Alberta, and at the time, this was a while ago, there was no jazz program, there was no musical theater program. It was only classical, and I love classical music a lot. But I mean, that was all I was exposed to on a professional music level. So I did my undergrad there. I ended up going to study with Mary Lou Follis. She is a very well-known singer from Canada. I went to study with her at University of Western Ontario. She got me into another program at the Glen Gould School in Toronto. Then I found a teacher I wanted in New York, ended up at Brooklyn College, and then at the Manhattan School of Music, and then at the Mozarteum. So it's been that was a lot of years doing classical music, a lot, and it was fun. I loved it. But I missed being creative and making my own thing. There's not a lot of room for that in the classical music world, or at least there wasn't at that point. There is a lot more coming out now, new things, new productions. So I started doing shows and touring them.
And I mean, you've written some award-winning shows. I mean, some of these include My Pal Izzy, based on the life of Irving Berlin. You've got The Sparrow and the Mouse, and Piaf and Brel, The Impossible Concert, all about Edith Piaf. How did you get into writing and performing one-woman shows?
Well, that's a very good question. I've always loved the unusual music. So doing the opera degrees, doing the classical degrees, I would say, look, Beethoven wrote a partial opera, Fierabras. Nobody knows it. There was a great aria in it. I thought, I'll sing that. But no one wanted to hear that. People just wanted to hear the same things they would always hear, especially at auditions. And when it came to song cycles, I thought, okay, look, Schubert wrote over 600 songs. Let's look at the ones that nobody else is performing. And that didn't always go over so well at school and at auditions, because people wanted to hear and judge what they already knew.
Right.
And I was really feeling a bit constricted by that, considering this great music already exists and that it's out there. So I started looking at Irving Berlin just because he counted as a crossover between classical and non-classical. Right. So he was kind of my gateway, I guess, out of an opera career. And I found these early songs he wrote when he was 15, when he was 16. He started as a lyricist. His first song was called Marie in Sunny Italy. So I mean, he wasn't always, that great a lyricist. I mean, his English wasn't even all that good at that point, and he was still writing lyrics to songs and supporting his family doing that. And I thought his story was fascinating. So then I thought I could write a show or do a concert on this. So I did. And having grown up in Edmonton, I knew of the Fringe there. So I wrote a show. I did the Fringe. And then I met the touring artists, the ones who tour the country doing different festivals. And I thought, you know what? I want that. I had sung in several summer opera programs in Vermont, in Mississippi, and again, everyone was really snarky. All the not the people in charge, and not the people singing the leads necessarily, but the other artists that I was working with. Everyone was competitive. No one was supportive. But then with these touring artists, it was a new world, and I wanted in, basically. So that's how I started.
And I got to ask a question. My mom will kill me if I don't. My mom is a very avid knitter.
Yay!
what role does knitting play in your life? And you are an expert on knitting music of World War I and World War II. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay. So what happened was my sister is a crazy knitter. And back when podcasts were just starting to be a thing, like around 2009, she said, we should do a podcast. And I thought, I don't know what that is, but okay, sure, let's do that. She's a Canadian diplomat, so she was overseas in Argentina, I think, at that point. So it was a way for us to connect. So I said, what should we make this podcast about? Like, I thought a podcast was a single thing you did and then it was over. Mm-hmm. And she's like, let's do a knitting podcast. So we started doing that, and we had, I don't know, a couple hundred episodes. We should honestly get back to it. Because we had a great time. And then we stopped. She had kids. So we stopped doing it, but her kids are older now. And so I had to learn to knit, basically. If we were going to do a knitting podcast, I couldn't be the non-knitter. It didn't work. So I learned to knit. Every now and then I get really into knitting, and then I finish the shawl or whatever, and then I stop for a while. But podcast fans, it actually did pretty well because it came out at the time when, podcasts were just could explode. They really could. So we had a ton of listeners. It should have kept with it. It would have been a great audience. Still, I've got to get back to that. But someone sent me a piece of knitting music, and they said, "Look, you're a musician. You do a knitting podcast. One of the listeners, here's some knitting music." And I thought, wait, there's knitting music. So I applied for a grant with the Alberta government, got money to record and find knitting music, and then it just sort of took off from there. I found almost 100 different knitting songs. I've recorded like 20 of them. I'm actually doing my knitting show in Edinburgh in Scotland next week. So I perform it all the time still. Of every show, that is one of the 2 shows that gets performed the most.
And all the songs are about knitting.
They're all about knitting, and they range from propaganda songs to encourage in World War I to encourage women to knit, to sort of funny songs in World War II about how cute women are knitting, and that's how you'll find your man. So, there's even a song about a woman who knits with all the soldiers, and knitting is not just knitting. I mean, there's double entendre songs. Yeah. It's great.
So you've got this show for this year's Fringe called Hockey, Sticks and Beaver Pies. It sounds super fun and entertaining. You're based in Alberta, and you did a version of this show in last year's Edmonton Fringe Festival. Have you always been interested in quirky facts about Canadian provinces? And was it hard to adapt this play for Manitoba audiences?
It's basically a whole different play. Honestly, Same title, vaguely the same poster, different play. Because, it started with me. My mom lives in Alberta, and then she recently moved to Ottawa, which, by the way, has no 7-Elevens, which is, no Slurpees.
Yeah, no Slurpees.
It is tragic. So that's mention that in the show here, because I wouldn't have encouraged her to do that had I known it was a Slurpee-free city. But anyway, when she started to talk about moving, I started to think, okay, what do I actually know about this province where I've lived my entire life? Like, it's very easy to make fun of your home province when it's Alberta. But I thought, you know what, I actually really like it in many ways. And I thought, okay, it's time to learn about Alberta. I went to French immersion school growing up, and we didn't learn about Alberta. We learned about, Quebec. Basically, everything we learned about was about like the battle on the plains of Abraham, and all. It was that. It was that one part of Canadian history again and again and again and again. Yeah. And I thought, okay, it's time to learn about Alberta, and I was shocked at like the richness of the history. I mean, in Alberta, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was brought in as an influencer when Jasper National Park opened. Like, there's just so many random things in Alberta. I mean, we have everyone knows about the biggest Pysanka egg statue, but no one knows we have a real UFO landing site in St. Paul built with centennial money from the government. Like, it's so weird. Yeah. So, it just got to be like, wow, what a weird province I come from. And I thought I would I've spent so much of my life here at the festival, almost a year of my life doing festivals here. I thought it was time to learn about Manitoba, and it is maybe not equally as weird, but there's a lot of interesting facts here.
So where did you do your research?
Okay, there are a lot of lists, like 45 strangest things about Manitoba. So I started with those lists, but also I read old newspapers. You go back into the newspaper databases and try to guess at what keywords might lead to an interesting article. And I just read and read and read. And I wish it could be a longer show. I need another half an hour, to be honest. I had to cut a lot. But everyone knows about the general strike, so that's the thing we know, but we don't know about like If Day, which in 1942 was a day where, to raise money to sell war bonds, Winnipeg cosplayed a Nazi invasion. They had young men order costumes from Hollywood from the local business association, dress up like Nazis and arrest the mayor. Like, who knew? Like there's this great history. So yeah.
I want to talk about Deanna Durbin. She is one of the Manitoba musicians who you're going to be whose music you're going to be celebrating in the show. You've written a book about her called Deanna Durbin and Judy Garland and the Golden Age of Hollywood. Yet another facet to your personality.
That was my COVID project, honestly.
I'd never heard of her. Who was she? And what songs of hers are you going to be doing in the show?
So what is interesting about her is that no one remembers her music. I mean, people know her as an actress, but unlike Judy Garland, who has all these hits, people don't necessarily know Deanna Durbin's songs. So I'll be singing the song I Like to Whistle, which is just, they're cheerful. They're like Pollyanna-like songs. That's what she sang. But she came from Winnipeg. Her family immigrated here in the 1923, I think. It's in the book. It's been a minute since I've looked that up. But her family immigrated here. Her parents did. Eventually, her grandparents and her uncle also did. And she was born right here in St. Vital. Her grandmother is buried close to the Fringe grounds, just about a kilometer away. She was the pride of Winnipeg in the 1930s and 1940s. She is what put Winnipeg on the international map. So she was a singer. She was a much more successful rival of Judy Garland, and she wanted to be forgotten when she left Hollywood. And that's why no one remembers her.
So why did she leave Hollywood?
Various things. There were new people in charge of the studio she was signed on to work with. They were not treating her. I mean, she essentially saved the studio she worked with from bankruptcy through her success. But after the war, there was a changeover in who was in charge, and they didn't treat her with the respect she deserved. Her contract was a lot. She was making a lot of money. She was the highest paid woman in Hollywood, and they didn't want to spend the money on her, so they were trying to get out of her contract. It was one of these like Hollywood things. They weren't treating her very well, and she didn't have patience. She didn't care enough about being on stage. She didn't care enough about being in front of the audience to put up with it. So she found happiness. She moved to France. She lived a long, long life out of the spotlight in France.
You're also going to be doing songs by Terry Jacks of Seasons in the Sun fame and Burton Cummings. Can you mention some of the songs that you're going to be doing of theirs? And how do the songs make their way into the show?
Sure. Well, for Burton Cummings, it's I Will Play a Rhapsody. That song, I mean, this is giving away the show a bit, but growing up in St. Albert, there was nothing to do but go to the mall. So we'd go to the mall, and growing up, that song was on the loop at the mall for years. So I'd go to the shopping mall, hear that song, and that was my first crush, was Burton Cummings through that song. And I saw him play, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago in New York, and he is just as sexy. I mean, good looking. He's just as good looking as he ever was. But no, he was my first crush. As far as Terry Jacks, I sing I do a Piaf and Brel show, and one of Brel's main songs is called Moribund, and Terry Jacks does the English version of that, and it's significantly different. Brel's version is bitter and angry and like all that, and Terry Jacks is more saccharine, and it's a very big change for a song that was meant to yell in the face of death for Brel, and then be sort of quietly sad by Terry. It might get cut because of time, though. Like realistically, that might not actually make it. We went over the first show, so that actually might not actually be in the show from now on.
So you've got the musical element to the show. Can you mention some of the quirky places and facts that you'll be talking about the show? And I mean, if you're in Manitoba in the summer, you got to have a Slurpee on stage to sort of wet your whistle and keep your voice.
That's an excellent point. I will from now on. There's a 7-Eleven right across the street, actually. So some of the facts, last year alone, and this is only official numbers, the real number is probably higher. In Winnipeg, there was 188,833 Slurpees sold. I'm assuming that's just 7-Eleven. But like, considering like 8 months of the year is winter, like that's a lot of Slurpees.
Yep, you still see it. People middle of January going for a Slurpee. Yep.
I love it so much. I mean, it's the same in Edmonton. My sister and I would St. Albert. We'd walk through a blizzard to like get our Slurpees. There's a lot of Guinness Book of World Records here, including the largest number of people howling like wolves in Thompson, Manitoba. So yay, Thompson.
Yeah.
There's the world's largest mosquito statue in Camarno, of course. And of course, there's Gimli. Like, nobody knows out from outside of Manitoba that the largest population of Icelandic people in the world outside of Iceland is in Gimli.
Yeah.
Plus, it's the brewery site for Crown Royal.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was even Canadian.
Drive up to Gimli and you'll know it right away
If
because
I
you
had
can
a
smell
car,
it.
I would. Yeah. No, I mean, I very much want to go to Gimli now. And I had never heard of the Gimli glider.
Yeah.
My mom had, but I hadn't, which is, of course, the Air Canada flight in 1983 that ran out of gas because people couldn't figure out the metric versus the imperial system. And it landed safely right outside Gimli.
Yeah.
So
It sounds really great. The show really does celebrate Manitoba, but ultimately it has to be entertaining as well. The songs sung by you, of course, are going to hold their own ground. They're going to be fabulous, I'm sure. But can you talk about some of the ways that you keep the text engaging for audiences as well? Like, do you add humor, or how does that work?
I do add humor. Yep. The reason the show keeps getting longer is because there's sometimes is unexpected back and forth. You know, I'll tell a story and someone will be like, I was there. And I'll be like, great, please tell me more. You know, it's not me acting in character. It's me just telling some stories, singing some songs. Like I said, it grows every day. I mean, I did the first show yesterday and somebody told me, I was talking about how the Icelandic people, when they first came to Gimli in 1875, how all they took with them was what they could carry on their backs when they went to the seaports in Iceland. And after the show, someone told me that they made a priority to bring their books. You know, they could have brought plows, they could have brought winter gear, but no, they brought books, which is now it's going to be in the show. So it's integrating people's stories and what they tell me into the show, and it's and I honestly think the stuff is amazingly fascinating. In Canada, we don't learn enough about our own country, especially now that, I mean, realizing a lot of our history is problematic. There's a sense of we shouldn't even learn it at all.
Yeah.
And our history is an important history. It's important to know what made this country what it is, good and bad.
Yep.
And I mean, if you think about it, the Hudson Bay Company was 335 years. It just died this last June. It's dead after 335 years. Its first department store opened here in Winnipeg in 1881. Yeah. But also, the show I'm doing next year, and the one I've been working on all this year, like for next year, is an unknown story of someone who worked for the Hudson Bay Company. And think of how many stories there are in 335 years of history. So, which again, I talk about this character in my show. It's a woman who disguised herself as a man to come work for the Hudson Bay. She snuck onto a boat in Scotland and came over. So many stories involving Manitoba.
Absolutely. Oh, this has been really fun to have you here in studio, Melanie. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking what you hope audiences are going to take away from the show.
I guess I had never appreciated Alberta enough, honestly. And then my mom moved, and now I very much appreciate it because I miss it more than I thought I would. I mean, I don't actually live there right now, but it's still considered my home. And I want people to appreciate where they come from. Like, yes, the prairie provinces are weird. It's okay to have 188,000 Slurpees.
Yeah.
It's what makes us unique. We're a charming part of Canada, and Eastern Canada and far Western Canada doesn't always recognize how cool the middle provinces actually are. But we have a lot of history.
Yeah.
So yeah, and just enjoy your Slurpees because Ottawa has none.
Melanie, this has been really great. All the best for the remainder of the run here in Winnipeg. I hope you have an opportunity to explore the city while you're here and discover more about it. Thanks so much for taking the time to stop by and talk to me today about the show Hockey Sticks and Beaver Pies.
Thank you so much.
For our Classic 107 listeners, Hockey Sticks and Beaver Pies, as performed by Melanie Gall, takes place at the Théâtre Molière at 340 Provencher Boulevard. For more details and showtimes, visit winnipegfringe.com or go to classic107.com. I have embedded a direct link to the show page in the article about the show that you can find up there now. Melanie, thanks again.
Thank you so much.